Hello everybody, my name is Hakim and I'd like to first start off with the fact that I am not sponsored by any of the games that I have said inside this video. So don't even get started with that and put up the sellout alarm or whatever. But today's video is about the effects of video games and is it really worth it to play video games? Do the pros outbalance the cons? Let's find out. The introduction. If you haven't been living under a rock, you probably know that video games are a type of game that is digital on things like computers and mobiles. There are many different types of video games actually. There are role-playing games, MOBAs, also known as multiplayer online battle arenas, FPS, first-person shooters, adventure, etc. But scientists found many benefits and side effects to video games. There is thought to be 1.8 billion gamers out in the world today, with approximately 1.2 billion of those being PC gamers. Games are also pretty graphics based now. They aren't as pixelated. Take No Man's Sky, as if you search it up, it's extremely detailed. It's many people's jobs actually to play said games on the internet, and they actually get paid extremely well for it. And people usually get what's called an addiction to video games, and I'll go into that later. There have been many articles written about video games, good and bad, and 63,762 official games have been published as of May 2017, with many different styles, like I said before. So what are the pros and cons of video games? So first of all, I like to start with the effects on the brain, actually. So I'm going to say all the pros first, and then I'm going to say all the cons. So the first thing I like to say is that it increases creativity and it improves cognitive functions, quick thinking and accuracy. It allows people to multitask while simultaneously tracking of many shifting variables and managing multiple objectives, and increases spatial reasoning. So I'm going to go over these one by one, except for increases creativity, since I'm going to explain that in more detail later. It improves cognitive functions by being able to solve those things fast, solving problems much faster than they would normally. And then quick thinking comes into this as well. But they're able to quickly think of solutions without losing accuracy, which is something that's very prevalent in many different problems, since you need to have quick thinking while keeping your accuracy stable. And multitasking, simultaneous tracking of many different shifting variables, and managing multiple objectives. Well, this is very important due to things like driving, as you need to keep your eyes on the road while also keeping your, let's say, your children without crashing or damaging the car at the same time. But you still need to keep your eyes on the road. So this is really important. And then spatial reasoning, you're able to reason and conceptualize and visualize the things around you much faster than if something you did was much faster than if you hadn't played video games. Now I like to go into the cons now. There is the decreased gray matter inside your brain, which I'll get into later. Decreased focus on certain tasks that are irrelevant to the game, so like a test. ADHD creates dopamine inside the brain, which causes the effect of addiction. A weaker hippocampus and exposure to pornography. So let's go over them one by one again. So the decreased gray matter inside the brain. Gray matter is used inside the brain to communicate with one part of the brain to the other. Let's say the hippocampus to the nucleus appada. And so there are also the decreased focus on certain tasks that are irrelevant to the game. So let's say your friends are talking about the recent science test, but you're going to lose focus since it's not going to be about the game, and you like the game so much that you want to keep talking about it. Depression, schizophrenia, PTSD, and Alzheimer's I will go into later. ADHD, which is pretty much the loss of focus with things. Um, Another thing is that it creates dopamine, which causes the effect of addiction. Dopamine is like the happy chemical that makes your brain happy, but you want to always be happy, so you want to keep on playing, which causes the effect of addiction. And a weaker hippocampus, which I'll get onto with depression, schizophrenia, PTSD, and Alzheimer's. And the final one is exposure to pornography, which is very prevalent and can be extremely addicting and very horrible to the brain as it changes your perception a bit. So now let's go on to the behavior or social effects of video games, and this time we'll start with the cons since there's more of them. They're much more aggressive. They play secret. They play much secretively, much more secretive. They're usually addicted. They're less empathetic. They're isolated socially. They teach wrong values. The games themselves teach the person wrong values, and they're vulnerable to bad behaviors, and they can't go with their family, so they have less family time with their own family. So let's explain those one by one. Aggressive people become more aggressive when they play video games, so that they want to win, and they get more aggressive, trying to, yes, let's win, and they get much more angry if they don't win. They'll be like, oh, I'm gonna punch your face, things like that, and they become way more aggressive. They play much more secretively. They don't. They hide from their parents how much they actually played. They played because they had things. They wanted to keep their parents away from the bad situation, because they probably stopped them, which because they love you. But yeah, that's the tangent for another video. But yeah, so you'll lie and try to manipulate the facts to try to allow you as a person to you as a person to do it. The next thing is that they're usually addicted to the game. Like I said before, it creates dopamine, which makes you happy, but that you want to keep being happy, so you keep on playing video games and over until you can't stop and you don't even know how long you've been playing. They're less empathetic. They need to have empathy, and this links into aggressiveness as well, due to the fact that if they're more aggressive, then they won't be as empathetic to the losing team, and if they're the losing team themselves, then they will become way more aggressive against the winning team and want to fight them or punch them, or like trying to call out that they're hacking or whatever. Another thing is social isolation, is that when they play video games, they don't play outside as much, and this causes people to not interact with one another equally or as effectively, and this causes the child to become more reclusive to the outside world. It teaches wrong values. I'll go into that later, but vulnerable to bad behaviors. They're way more vulnerable to people being more aggressive and people saying curse words, or being people hacking or cheating, and they'll pick up those bad behaviors, which is really bad. And they get to spend less time with their family. And to show that your parents care for you, that they want you to stop playing video games, but you don't. But you keep on playing video games because it's fun and it's way more fun than family time. Really hurts the family as a whole because it shows that they don't care about them. They care about them less than the video game. So let's go into the pros of behavior and social effects of video games. People become more competitive. They want to win. Win more, and but people would say that, oh yeah, this makes them more aggressive to others, but in most cases actually they would want to compete, saying, oh, I want to be as good or even better than my friend over there who's been getting A's and whatever. So you want to get better grades, or you want to get as fit as them, and that's not only helping you; it's helping as a whole actually, and this especially works inside the economic area due to the fact that people are trying to compete for the better product, but as the consumer, you get better products for a cheaper price due to them being more competitive against other products. More and games allows you to have more friends. Since you can only get a fixed amount of friends when you play outside with let's play like football with your neighborhood friends, but uh, but video games allow you to play all around the world, and let you see different styles of playing and different styles and cultures, and that's helping society as a whole. Than playing than playing with your neighborhood friends, which is a fixed amount of friends. It allows teamwork to happen, and you might say, "Oh, this actually tears teams apart due to them being more aggressive against their own team because they're not doing well." But if you really think about it, they're all going after one common objective, and they all want to become better at it. So what they do is that they become better because they want to cooperate and communicate with each other. And I'll go deeper into that later. But finally, it helps with communication. Communication is key when it comes to playing games. But even in the real world, communication is key when it comes to um, deciding who gets this piece of land, or who should get the monopoly over this item. And communications can be easily tracked down or helped, and people can improve their communication skills by playing an online game with friends and trying to achieve a common goal. And finally, the final type of effect are the effects of the body that games make. So since we started with cons last time, we're going to start with pros this time. So there's physical innovation, which I'll go into later. A better fight or flight response, which makes people more alert and allows people to see a danger or threat and instantaneously say, oh, I need to run, or oh, I need to fight this person or this animal. Uh, Another thing is that people have better response times, causing people to have causing people to being able to react against like a threat or a pop quiz better than people than don't. Another thing is that people have good hand-eye coordination, being able to see something and react to it without having to see what you need to do in the first place. Being able to um, look at the road and drive without having to always look at the steering wheel. and it improves motor skills. You have more control over your hands, which is a very important thing to be able to do. You can type faster. You can get assignments that are on the computer much quicker, which is actually getting better because we're living in a more digitalized world. So a con, but the cons of body effects are people get muscle pains, they get bad posture, they have less outside time, their vision starts to get blurry, it deteriorates muscle, and it damages hearing. So let me go over those one by one. Muscle pains. Muscle gets if you don't use muscle all the time, it deteriorates. And since usually in a video game, all you're using at most are your arms, but at least your fingers. So that means your legs, your hips, and your stomach, the muscles in those regions become weaker, and that's bad if you're trying to run from something. And that's bad if you're trying to run from something because you're going to be slower then. Bad. The second one that I have to say is that bad posture. Your eyes when you play games are usually glued to your screens, and you don't usually take your eyes away from it. But people don't usually put their chair and slide it inwards closer to the screen. They usually put their eyes closer to the screen without moving the chair, which causes them to be slouched inwards, which is really bad since since this could cause many spine problems that that can only be cured using surgery. Less outside time, I will explain that later, but blurry vision. When you look at a screen, there's so many lights, and it's different to outside light. So since our bodies have been adapted to seeing outside light instead of inside light, instead of looking at a computer screen all day, the lens gets damaged due to the fact that it needs to keep on turning and turning and turning to be able to turning to be able to adapt to those things. And it deteriorates muscle, like I said before. It muscle pains. The deterioration of muscle causes muscle pains, and finally, it can damage hearing, especially in horror games where there are lots of jump scares. You usually hear an extremely loud noise, and that startles you. But that extremely loud noise, if you crank it too high, then it can start damaging your ears. Not only by damaging your cochlea over time, but if it's loud enough, damage or even burst the eardrum in altogether. Now, a quick disclaimer: I'm only explaining one pro and one con, and so if you have more information about the effects of video games, then please debate it out in the description. And if something I said is outdated, please tell me inside the description, inside the comments as well. So let's go on to it. One pro and one of each category. So I'd like to first start up with it increases creativity, as modern technologies allows us to not be as creative in how we solve problems in life, such as if you need to give an art assignment of, let's say, grapes, you don't need to use your imagination of what grapes look like, but rather just look on the internet of grapes. However, with video games, especially puzzle games, they recommend or even force you to think outside the box and thinking unnaturally to find the solution, which causes the child to show their interpretation of grapes and show how they're and show how thinking outside the box gives a better result than thinking inside the box and being standard, because you're thinking in a different way that is different. You're thinking in a way that creates a better result for less energy. And many of the artworks in game inspire people to create much more art pieces that are similar to the grade style shown in the art piece, but not in the way that modern art museums show and inspire. So another one is that it allows teamwork, and teamwork is a very important skill for learning at school due to the fact that you need to have full cooperation and in with people that you might not like or not even know at all. So it's very important. So it's a very important skill to have. Many online games allow you and encourages you to cooperate with usually strangers to be able to achieve a common goal. So put this into scholarly terms, and what happens? Practically using everyone to their best potential and almost full cooperation. But this skill also comes into later life as well during a job. So you need to cooperate with people that you just meet to not get fired. And there's physical innovation. It is shown in recent years that gamers are just lazy bums that don't exercise at all. But with the recent comings of Just Dance or Dance Dance Revolution, the image has changed to experienced dancers at home or at the arcade. But with recent technologies coming in and being innovated with things like Xbox Motion and more allowing VR games, people are getting fitter and fitter every day due to the innovations of these technologies. Can gaming turn people healthier than the torture device known as the treadmill? Yes. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So, but let's flip over the pancake and let's say the cons of each category. The depression and schizophrenia, PTSD, and Alzheimer's. Prolonged exposure to games can deteriorate the gray matter in the hippocampus, which is responsible for the brain being able to store and recall short-term and long-term memories, as well as needed for navigation, as many popular FPS games have more action in front of them that they don't focus on where they are, as well as having a closed fixed place to fight, thereby making the hippocampus unneeded, thereby deteriorating its ability to communicate through the gray matter. But less gray matter won't just make your brain being hard to recall or store short-term or long-term memories. It can cause horrible diseases such as depression, schizophrenia, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and Alzheimer's, which are very serious brain diseases which can evolve and turn into even worse things called like suicide, and that's horrible. Uh, Video games also teach wrong values. Video games usually portray things that can change your perception and values of the teen or child, such as a common one of women being portrayed as helpless NPCs, or if you die, you can just respawn at some ambiguous area. And finally, it shows violence as a good thing and to resort to it if in danger or at crisis instead of showing diplomacy. There are exceptions though, such as Undertale, or being violent to others and even to your own family. This is easy to prevent but can cause real problems like an increased crime rate or even an all-out civil war due to more aggressive and more bad thinking children who grow up into bad thinking adults. And finally, they get to go outside less and they rather have fun inside. They rather have fun inside than meeting a person or even going outside. And this leads to many different effects that can lead to bad things. Two examples of the effects are: number one, lack of being outside deprives a growing person of vitamin D, and this vitamin is needed for bone growth and many others. Two, and lack of movement of being indoors doesn't allow muscles to grow, causing pains to the muscles as well. And this can cause people being sad about their self-image, and like I said, cause depression and sadness, and they can take their own life as well. So if you see someone going through some stuff, don't be afraid to talk to them, as a simple conversation is enough to save their own life. And I like to finish off the video with a hey, thanks for watching the video. Please like and please like and subscribe. And I'll see you for the next one. Thanks. Bye.